Hello class, this is Megan Derrick, and this is my week 5 DST, Assessing with Technology. Assessments are used to gather data and evaluate learning, and they can also be used to let instructors know how well their class is going, if they need to make any adjustments, if the students aren't learning, if they need to go back and reteach lessons. And through my time as a teacher and an adjunct professor, I have learned that not all assessments are bad. I know when I was growing up, I had a lot of test anxiety and I didn't do very well on a lot of tests. But I think that was mainly a thing I had with high stakes testing. So I think, creating kind of a positive environment and trying to reduce test anxiety as much as you can help, because assessments are great for gathering data. Now there are many different types of assessments, but I'm going to go over the 6 main types that I have learned about throughout my time in the field and working on my bachelor's and master's. So the first type is the diagnostic test. That is kind of the way to gather data as a pre-assessment. And then one of the most common ones is formative assessments. Those you do regularly throughout instruction. They can be formal or informal, little things like whiteboard checks and thumbs up, thumbs down, things like that. Then we have summative assessments. Those are where they measure achievement at the end of a unit or the year. At the year. Things like the end of course exams are summative assessments. Then we have the norm reference assessments. Those compare a student's performance against other students. And criterion reference are where it measures a student's performance against a standard. So those two I still get confused sometimes. But norm is against other students, criterion is against kind of a criteria. That helps me understand. And then we have benchmark assessments, which evaluate students' performance at periodic intervals. Those are things like unit tests, kind of at the culmination of a lesson or module or unit. And moving along, the zone of proximal development. So we read about that and learned about it a little bit more in the lecture. It was by Vygotsky in 1978. It's an educational learning theory, and it's built on scaffolding. And the way I remember what scaffolding is if you think about construction, they need scaffold and support to create buildings. So in the middle, or in the little purple area, that's the current understanding and what students can do just by themselves. And moving out into the blue, that's the zone of proximal development, where the student can learn through scaffolding and different supports. And then the green is what is kind of out of reach for the student's understanding at that current time. Then this is kind of from a project that I had done in last semester or something like that. These are the different steps in creating an assessment. So at some point down the line, you'll be creating your own tests or assessments. So first you start off by planning your assessment, and then you move into writing the items, compiling the test, using the test, and then at the end, improving the test. And here we have some different technology-based assessments that I have used in the classroom, and I think they're kind of fun. These are more gamified assessments. They're not very high stakes. They're more formative. The first one is Kahoot. I know a lot of us have experience with that. It's where individual players and even groups compete to answer questions correctly, and within the fastest time, they get points depending on how fast they answer. And I also have quizzes. That is instructor-led, or it can be assigned. Questions and answers are on the screen or on the device that the students are using, which is nice. And then we have Go Formative. It's accessible from any electronic device, so students can use computers or mobile devices. It provides real-time feedback also. And then we have Quizlet, which is a digital learning tool and flashcards. It also has different games and a testing feature. And here are the pros of technology-based assessments. The first one is adaptability. There are lots of different platforms out there that adapt based on the students' responses. I know different programs like iReady, they change based on the student's answer. So when I was teaching second grade, the students would take the pre-assessment at the beginning of the year, and if they were doing really well on the pre-assessment, the questions would get harder, and if they were not doing very well, the questions would either stay the same or drop down just to see what level they were at. And another pro is authenticity. Technology assessments allow students to explore different areas of understanding, and they use lots of real-world examples. And another pro is the turnaround time, whether the assessment is graded using artificial intelligence or just the instructor is behind the screen answering or grading quickly. The turnaround time is pretty quick. You don't have to wait like months for your SAT scores or anything like that. And the variety, there's tons of different assessment technologies out there. Lots of different websites. Make sure you vet them before you use them, but there are a lot of options out there. Now, one technology-based assessment that I wanted to discuss that I have experience with is the CASAS test. I think I've talked about this before, but it is the test that English language learners use to determine their level of understanding, their WIDA levels. When I was an adjunct professor, my students would take that, and then they were placed in my course, and it assesses basic and academic skills through real-world contexts. It can also test reading, math, English language writing, and work readiness skills, depending on the program that the students are in. So I put a little example of what the directions are up here. So you can see students are given directions, but that can also be a whole nother issue if their English understanding is at a very basic level. They won't be able to read the directions. So yeah, that's a whole nother thing to discuss. But moving forward, and the last point I wanted to make was about Qualtrics. If you haven't already explored it, I would definitely recommend checking it out. You don't have to create a survey or anything. You can just mess around with it. And if you've ever gotten a survey from someone, it's probably been through Qualtrics. As a PhD student, we get them all the time from different people within our program and College of Ed and all that good stuff. It's an online survey tool. It's available to all USF students for free, which is nice. It's just a different way to distribute surveys, so you don't have to go house to house or whatever they used to do in the olden days. It's a great tool to analyze data. It's web-based, which is nice. You don't have to download any programs, and it is fairly user-friendly. I had no issues, and people of all sorts of backgrounds and educational levels use it. And that's about it. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment, and I will try to answer it. Thank you.